Hi, good morning. I always thought creative mornings is an oxymoron because I don't know how to be creative so early in the morning. But you guys are going to do that for me. First, my name is Mars. Secondly, there's this card that you guys have. I'm just going to tell you that this is the front of the card because in Singapore you kind of have to describe everything and make sure everyone knows what to do. This is the back of the card. Okay? Back, which is the blank, and the front of the card. So you guys have, does everyone has a card and a marker with you? Okay. You thought you're just going to sit here and listen to a talk, right? You didn't know it's going to be interactive. Okay. Done that? Flip it over. It's kind of challenging. Preferably the alphabet that we all understand. Okay? Preferably someone you have not met. Okay? This is the next instruction. Don't worry, you get to network later on after the talk. So this is the next part. Preferably with that letter. Okay? Everyone got this? So, let me just repeat again, right? Your name should be on this side, and the letter is on this side, and then you'll form a word with that letter right now. Again, it'll be good if we can understand what that word means. And you'll know why. So once you're done with that, pass it again to someone else. Don't give it to the same guy that gave it to you, the card. Every time I do this, it's quite amazing how confused people get. Okay, so this is what you do next. This is what you do next. Sorry? You can swap it as many times as you want, but we do have a limited amount of time, so it'll be good that you can just start drawing. This is the instruction. Draw. You can draw a card if you want. Or blood. Okay, stop. Pass it again to someone else. And then draw. Everyone should have one card. I mean, try not to hoard cards. If you can draw more than one card at the same time, please join us. Draw. Okay, stop. Pass it to someone else. And draw. Do you see a pattern repeating? All right, stop. Pass it to someone else. And that's it. Okay. All right? Okay, so let me tell you more about what, I hope that woke you up a little bit other than the coffee that you had in the morning. You can put the card away first. We'll visit the card later on. So I'm just going to tell you more about what we do, me and the band of Doodlers. But more importantly, I just want to bring everybody up to think about this. The most pertinent question that you have to ask yourself in your lives at whatever age, from young to old, in fact, it gets more and more difficult when you grow older, is who are you? And that means you need to know what's your story before you say who you are. Typically, when we heard this, that I heard I was going to give this talk about, and the theme is ink, I wanted you to go and reconnect with your doodling or drawing or the tactile part of it. But more importantly, I think everything that we do in your life has got to do with the story that you tell others. And the other underlying question to this is, what exactly do you want? Most of the time when we're young, what you want can be going to the moon, to being the president of the universe. And as you get older, your dreams get smaller and smaller. And it's kind of strange why it happens. And maybe to relate that in a little bit better, I'll tell you my story. So my name is Mas, and as Dalen correctly pointed out, my moniker is One Ton Doodle. And there's a reason why I use One Ton Doodle as a moniker. So I've always wanted to draw. At the age of 2 years old, this is what I wanted to do. In fact, my mom discovered it when she came into the bedroom one day, and then all she saw was her lipstick all over the walls, all the doodling and drawing. Thankfully, she didn't punish me for it, basically because I think she's just thankful that I decided to apply it on the wall and not my face. But from that, obviously, I evolved into the things that I'm doing. So I'm just going to flash some of the illustration stuff that I've been doing over the years. But at the same time, I'll tell you my story. So I grew up a typical Singaporean boy, and my parents are typical Singaporean conservative parents. So every time I said I wanted to do art or pursue art as a career, they will tell me, like, no, you should go to school, and then you should get a proper degree, and then go and get a job in the corporate world. And the reason why is that they're brought up or taught to think that all these things will assure you of safety. Because if I were to pursue a career in art, they're worried that I'm just going to be busking for $5 portraits or caricatures by the side of the road. And it's very difficult to change people's mindsets because their attachment of meanings have been built on year after year, decades after decades. So we've reached an agreement every time with my parents in that, like my dad especially will tell me, like, you can only draw for like an hour after you study for an hour. And he kind of manipulated me along the way because he said that, okay, if you want to go to art school, finish your O-levels with straight A's. I got straight A's. I got into a gifted program as well. But because of that, he realized, actually I can use this to string him along to make sure that he gets his degree and all that. So in the end, I never got to go to art school. I never was trained. And then after that, when you get older and all that, you get influenced by your friends. So when my friends started doing certain things, which are typically not the things that I get to do, I will follow them as well. So that's where things shape you along the way. And it's only now when I start hanging out with a band of doodlers and started my own group, so I figured, like, if I'm going to have a passion and I want to do something, I'll form my own little posse. It was little at the start, 3 or 5. Now it's going to be quite big. Then I have my social support, and that is important, especially if you're pursuing your passion. Why I say this? Because whatever you do right now, if it's tiring to you, then it is not worth doing. This is a French author, in case you didn't know, and Michel Tournier actually has phrased it really well, and I believe this is so. I am technically juggling right now 3 jobs. I have my day job as a civil servant, so I'm working with PUB. Previously, I was working with the Prime Minister's Office under Public Service Division for a good 14, 15 years, and then I realized after 14 years, it's kind of enough is enough, right? So I want to move out and do something different. And that's when I applied for a job as a adjunct lecturer and all that, because all my friends at the art industry say that, oh, you can teach cursorily for 3 hours a day, and then the rest of the time you just bring your MacBook and you can do your own design work. But thankfully, PUB came knocking and asked me to come over, and my current boss is super supportive. She told me, why not you give it a try, juggling your design stuff and your work over in PUB, which is kind of, if you ask, I think some of you are in the civil service, I know I know a few of you guys. So it is very difficult to find a boss like that in the civil service. They will allow you and encourage you to do stuff like that. And just a little side, I think one of the things that she always said, which resonates with me, is that when I ask her, how come you allow me to do all these things, or encourage me, in fact, she says that if I don't feed your soul, your mind won't come to work. So it's very important for her to be, for bosses to be enlightened like that. And it shows. So what happened is that because of that, I'm actually doing a lot of my design stuff outside of this. So she gave me some time off so that I can do this. And in fact, I'll show you later on like some of the things that I'm doing on top of that. My second job is my illustration commission under One Ton Doodle. That name started off typically because I needed to have a moniker while I was working in the Prime Minister's office, because otherwise people would say, Mas, how come you're doing moonlighting stuff outside of your day job? So I need to have a moniker. And I figured I'm in Singapore, so the moniker should be something revolving around food, because that's when people remember stuff. Just like some of you are still chewing your food, so I use One Ton Doodle. And the third one is managing this group. Initially, it was not supposed to be, it's meant to be an interest group more than anything else. In fact, it still is. But because for some bizarre reasons, by design, not so much by design, but I guess by coincidence, we have grown to be quite big, so we have to do a lot of group management. But let me share some of the things that I've learned along the way. If you want, firstly, you need to know what you want. And because of that, right, you need to set a goal. So half the time, when you think about your passion, for some reasons, we always put it in a separate circle in the Venn diagram from our job or our passion. And because of that, your goals will never coincide. So just remember that your Venn diagram, you know the part that overlaps? That has to be where your goal is. And that goal has to fit both your passion as well as what you're doing most of the day. You spend more time, more waking hours with your colleagues than you do with anyone else. So it's kind of bizarre that your goal doesn't involve that aspect, right? It falls outside of that. Secondly, you really have to dream big and be scared. Jack Welch said this quite nicely, and I think what's surprising is that because I just came back from a Senior Executive Fellows program in Harvard Kennedy School, and a lot of my colleagues and classmates in that school always said this, that you have to dream big, but it's very difficult, but the box that you have to dream within in the civil service especially is super tiny, so you can't dream beyond that box. And I thought that was quite interesting because Jack Welch did say that if you are not nervous at least 50% of your time in your day job or in whatever you're doing, you're not growing. So you really need to expand beyond the boundaries. And then the other one is this. Everybody thinks that for you to be successful, you need to be lucky or know people or both, which is somewhat true, but typically, and this is shown in one of the studies that was done in the US, especially among public schools as opposed to private school students, right? Because the public school students typically have a level playing field. They realized that the students that did very well were not because they had extra tuition or given special classes, but because they had grit. And why? Because most of them do not think failure is a permanent option. In fact, right now, where we are, especially as adults, we always get defined by our failures, not our success. Crave criticism. Again, when I started the group, the Band of Doodlers, most of them are in their 20s. I'm not in my 20s. I'm a couple of decades above that. So when I'm trying to reconnect with them in terms of like what they think and how they move about or going forward, this is always their biggest problem. When I design something, I do not want to show it to the world because I'm worried that they will criticize it. Why? Because whatever criticism that's given to my piece of work will mean that I will reflect that. So if my work is ugly, means I'm ugly. If I'm not good, if my work is not good enough for this competition and I didn't win, means I'm always going to be second best. Again, most importantly, you have to make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, you're not likely to make anything. And this is really the best learning lesson that anyone can have. So what better way to make mistakes than in a space that is very comfortable, and more importantly, that it's within your passion, because that's totally within your control, right? It's something you love doing, so even if you make mistakes, just pick yourself up, which is exactly what Kelvin So said here in your card. So everything kind of reconnects. I didn't even see this beforehand, so I thought when I saw this in the morning, it was so apt. This is the biggest lesson that we all can learn. And I know for me, right, how I got to where I am right now in terms of pursuing my passion, both as a career and as a hobby or for fun, is because of this. All my life, and I'm assuming all your lives as well, you've been attaching meanings. Typically, when you study psychology, especially Freud's theories, is that it happens at 3 different stages in your life. One, when you're very young, typically when you are still learning your motor skills, that's when you get scolded or not scolded or reprimanded by your parents, whether to eat this or not to eat this. Basically, you want to eat everything, right? So you told this is bad and this is good. And then secondly, during your formative years or your tweens, and then finally, or teenage years, and then finally when you reach adulthood. So there's 3, if you think about it properly, right, there are actually 3 moments in your life that defines you or defines who you are now. which is screwed up, right? Because those 3 incidents will dictate the rest of the years of your life. So that's when you have to break out from that mentality and remember that whatever you do, you should stop attaching meanings. And we typically tend to do this, attach meanings to whatever we're doing. So even now, while I'm here, some of you might be thinking one way or another, and I'm trying to second guess you guys. So along the way, I'm trying to tell myself to stop doing that. We are wired to think this way is because back then, if we're not defensive or if we're not fear of failure, it will actually mean death. Either you fall off a cliff or a saber-toothed tiger will eat you up. But now you don't have that issue anymore, so why are we still restricted? So that's why the BOD story came about. Actually, it came out from a very simple and, I guess, humble beginning, in that all we wanted to do was to draw. And I bring you guys back to today's theme, which is inking. I was chosen as a mentor for the NOISE program, which is a National Arts Council program, very excellent program. Singapore is excellent for all these policies to roll out, to encourage people to be creative. You be creative now at this age and follow these rules. So what happened typically for this program, which is exactly 4 months long, is that at the end of it, there must be an end product, because if there's no end product, there's no way we can write a policy paper to justify the cost that we incur, is there'll be an exhibition. And the funny thing is that everybody's trained that way as well. So I've got my mentees who's like, I typically take 2 or 3 every year. In fact, I take more than that. And National Arts Council tell me, like, no, don't take so many because we don't have enough space for exhibition. I said, like, it doesn't matter. I have 2 of them drawing one small piece. It's still the same space, right? But I think, again, that's where the restrictive part comes in. So they will come in and they will draw, or they'll put up an exhibition, and at the end of 4 months, it ends. And the kids will go away, or the artists will go away, and we no longer have context. So I tried to get them, why don't we meet up once a month just to hang out and draw? And they're like, meet up for what? Program finished already. So then I figured, like, okay, so either I have to do one of 2 things, have a proper program or start a committee. I'm not going to do the second because I'm no way I'm going to do file notes and stuff like that. So I said, let's start an interest group, which is the Band of Doodlers. And we picked this name because I wanted to be inclusive. BOD, because I see a lot of art collectives and even design houses being very exclusive, so you have to fit a certain profile before you come in. BOD's profile, or basically, is all about, the only requirement that you have is that you have to have a passion for drawing and you must be able to hold a marker. And I didn't say how. So really, it's up to you as long as you want to join us. And it's meant to be inclusive. The reason why is that it's not just about inking, it's about linking. And I feel that especially in a community and in a space that's so small, 700 square kilometers only, you can literally cannot drive in one direction for more than half an hour without getting wet at the end of it. Right? So it's really about getting to know each other. And this is something that I always try to improve or tell them. When they get together, like today, for example, in the group, Weeping is joining or seeing her for the first time today. So I told her, before you draw, you must talk to each other and get to know each other. It's not just about hitting the wall or hitting the paper. So this is what BOD is about, being inclusive and getting to know each other. More importantly, it's about giving away your ideas. And I'm just going to, if you can just humor me for a bit, because I'm just going to tell you another short story. Typically what happened when I started One Time Doodle, I started doodling quite a bit. Because my day job consisted of about at least 3 to 4 meetings in a day, it's a struggle trying to stay awake after lunch. So, and back then, we didn't have Wi-Fi in fact, when I first started out, I didn't have a laptop. Okay, so just to give you an indication of how old I am. So, what happened was that in meetings, we just brought our paper and started like taking notes. And to stay awake, I started doodling in these meetings. So what happened when I started Doodle, I started posting these doodles up. And apparently one young boy in Philippines started copying my work wholesale and posted it up. Then one of his friends, I guess she's not really his friend, emailed me and said, like, one of my guys or friends is actually copying your work wholesale. You might want to do something about it. So his name is William. He was 15 years old then. And I emailed William through Facebook, and I said, thank you, William, for copying my work. I didn't realize that my work could have connected with someone. I just wanted to share it with the world, but since you did, it's amazing. Please carry on doing whatever you want and just share some more. And he was, I guess, moved by it, that he started emailing me and telling me the stuff that he's doing. And what happened after that, he started doing the same thing to his friends, and they started forming their own group. It's called Doodle Art Enthusiasts. It started in the Philippines. The group started out when he was 16 years old. He formed that group. Now he's 18 going 19, so he's in the uni. The group is now 10,000 strong, at least in terms of the number of likes. But when they go out en masse, in about at least 50 to 100 people drawing on the streets and all that. When I saw that, I said, I'm going to steal your idea and do the same over here. And that's what we did. This is how we share, and this is how we grow. There's enough space in this world for us to grow and proliferate our ideas. And you really have to stop holding your ideas too close to your bosom, because then your ideas will never grow, and neither will you. So BOD started in March last year, and it was about 10 strong. Today, it's 205 strong in terms of membership. Any of you can join the group. Just go to our Facebook groups and just make a request. But more importantly, what we want is the face-to-face connections. Social media is good for what it's worth. But beyond that, it's really more about coming together and drawing. Typically, we have about at least 50 people drawing at any one point in time, or thereabouts. So we have that kind of membership. And then, I think what's nice is that because it's such a community group, suddenly everyone wants to get involved, especially the politicians. Because they want to be seen drawing with the community and doing stuff with the community. So we now have a list of the 87 members of parliament, and we're checking it off one by one from the top down. Unlike like what has been seen here, we've actually been doodling with Minister Shanmugam and with Prime Minister and with both DPMs now. So we're just moving our way down to, I guess, the lesser members of parliament. Okay. While I'm talking you through, I guess I put together small clips. I'm just going to describe or narrate it along the way. I figured moving images is actually a little bit more interesting. So again, what we do is that we want to draw with the community. So it's not just us. A lot of times we try to do participatory work, which is really very interesting. And this is the part that gets challenging, because trying to convince the clients, I cannot guarantee what happens at the end, especially when kids draw. So when kids draw, I tell them, like, what do you want to draw? I want to draw my favorite character. So they start spelling out their favorite character in big, bold fonts, and you have to go and work around the way. But that also allows us a more emotional connection with it, and especially the parents. We've also done visual recording. We've done interesting things like drawing inside a window space. This is for Breguet Watch, luxury watch. We've done neon work. This is for the launch of Desperados. But typically, as far as possible, we want to make sure that people do draw with us. The last two clips are of things that are very recent, so I kind of stayed up late last night to just slip this in. This happened last weekend, where we were drawing with the Arts in Your Neighborhood for National Arts Council, where they're trying to promote arts in your neighborhood. One of the things that we had to convince National Arts Council was allowing the public to paint along with us. So there was a safety issue, obviously, that they can't climb the scaffoldings, but we gave little spaces for the public to draw, because only when the public connects with that piece, then they will have that connection. This is done at SAM. So, in fact, this exhibition is called Imaginarium, opens tomorrow, and we'll be there. So do come down. You see us, all our artwork is about four floors of doodling, and there's also interactive exhibitions over at SAM. So that's, in a nutshell, some of the things that we're doing. In a period of 1 year, from March last year to March this year, this is basically our 1 year anniversary. We've done 67 different gigs and shows. Not all of them are paid, some are paid, which is nice, because we need to pay for T-shirts and markers and all that. They don't come cheap. We've been knocking on Sharpie's door for the longest. But some of them are also community-driven, and I strongly encourage that. In fact, that's we have like a rules of BOD, kind of similar to the Fight Club rules, is that if it's your first time here, you have to draw, and you have to talk about BOD, as opposed to you don't talk about Fight Club. You need to talk about BOD and tell people. But more importantly, if you're going to draw for the first time, you really have to get to know each other. And one of your first gigs will always be a community gig. So one of the more interesting ones that we've done is that we did a workshop for disadvantaged children, and we drew on their toys to customize it for them for their Halloween party, which is very interesting for us. On that note, that's my story and the BOD story. So what's left to ask is, what's your story? And more importantly, what is it that you want? After that, once you know, you have to declare your story, because if a story stays with you, you'll always have excuses why you don't want to keep telling your story. The minute you share your story, there's always that social pressure to move forward. And most of the time when we hang out together, we share stories with each other, and we'll help each other out, like getting jobs. Half of us, or some of us, actually got jobs through the connections with each other. It's kind of strange that we have such a bigger and wider network and connection, but we don't allow that to happen because we allow all these policies and bureaucracies, and more importantly, attachment of meanings to change the way we should do things. Beaker is my favorite character in the Muppets because whatever happens to him, he'll come back in the next episode. You guys need to be more like Beaker. Never ever stop. Okay, so this is how you're going to contact me. Actually, you can get me at Mars at Band of Doodlers as well. And if you want to join us, just go to any of you just Google Band of Doodlers or Wanton Doodle, you get us. But more importantly, you have your card. Yes, the one that you drew earlier on. So all I ask for at the end, after the Q&A and the networking session, you find the card with your name on it. And that's not the end of it. And once you get that card, find the story from the guy who passed it to you. So based on that illustration, can I borrow one? So based on this illustration, the person handing it over to you must tell the story. Be as creative as possible when you tell the story. Okay? All right, so that's all for this section, and we'll do a Q&A.
Yeah. Wow, that was awesome. Let's give a round of applause for us, please. So we're going to do a little Q&A. Anyone wants to raise their first question to Moss?
Hey, I was just wondering.
Sorry, may I get your name?
Hi, I'm Reg. Nice to meet you.
Reg?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Moss.
Nice to meet you. So I was watching you guys draw.
Yeah.
Do you guys erase any work, or do you just keep going?
We just keep going until we have to eat. So one, we don't plan typically, but I usually tell them a theme. And the other thing that I always try to work with the clients or people that we're working with to say that the whole point of it is an evolution of work. What we really like doing is that we like to draw halfway and pass it to another. Actually, I have another video clip, but time was quite tight. So I had another piece where a few of us, the different artists, is William himself, who I mentioned earlier. He flew out of the Philippines for the first time in his life. He didn't even have a passport. And the first person he wanted to see was me, which I was very flattered. So he and his friend came over and then they stayed with me. And during that week, I introduced them to the group, and then we started drawing. The only condition of that drawing, which was really fun, was that all your characters had to be about this size so that it's uniform. And that's the reason why we do black and white. So one person's work will not outshine another's work. It's a collective piece. And no one character can be completed by one person. So I draw the head, somebody else will draw the body, and somebody else will draw. And that's another exercise that you guys can do as well. It's all about reconnection and working on each other's work.
I have another question.
Sure.
So when you start drawing, like you said, how many members? You have 205 members now. How do you select who works on what gig? And is it just first come, first serve, or volunteer?
It's a very painful process. In that, it's so heart-wrenching for me to select certain members over others. The good news is that, again, I realized that there's an opportunity in itself to learn from that process, as opposed to it residing totally with me, because I am not the president or the chairperson or the grand poobah of Band of Doodlers. I just started it. That's all I did. We have, thankfully, a group of dedicated volunteers, and we call them admins. They will help me identify the right candidates or artists. Typically, we want to curate based on the client's requirements. So if you want cutesy stuff or you want a graphic stuff, then we'll curate accordingly. But more importantly, I always keep telling them, when you come for shows or places like this, and even this weekend, we'll be drawing at Sports Hub, you need to talk to each other and get to know each other, because only then the admins can help me and say, hey, Mars, this guy is pretty good or pretty stand-up. Most of the time, we describe each other by personality, which is nice, as opposed to by the artwork. Because any one of you can draw like us. Anyone, trust me. It's just one big circle, 2 dots, and you have a kawaii character already. Does that answer your question? Yep.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm Vicky from Cartoons Underground.
Oh, hi, Vicky.
Yeah, very nice video. And my question is, where do you see Band of Doodlers in the next few years? And are you gonna maybe take it overseas, or what are the big plans?
Okay. One thing, I get asked that question a lot in the interviews. What's the plan for Band of Doodlers? There wasn't any plan to begin with, so naturally there isn't any plan moving forward, and that's kind of the best way to lead your life. But of course, we have big dreams, all right? So we wanted to make sure, as the name suggests, we're white space bandits. Anytime you see a white space, we want to take it over the walls, legally. Okay, I shouldn't do air quotes when I say legally. Legally. And of course, if we're done with Singapore, which is pretty small, we want to make sure that we take over the walls of other countries as well. So any of you want to fly us out and all that, apparently we should be going, or there's a plan for us to go for the Shanghai Toy Convention in May, but we're still working out the details because they just want to fly me up and it doesn't work. It's not Ben of Doodler, it's Ben of Doodlers. So.
I've got one more question.
Sure.
What's the biggest challenge that you faced since you started Band of Doodlers, and how did you overcome it?
Actually, that's a very good question because when I started it, it was meant to be for fun, and it still is, but I didn't recognize or wrap my head around the personalities and some of the emotional issues that come with it. So I get more emotionally stressed. Work-wise, in terms of staying hours, the guys can vouch that in fact, my dark circles can vouch for the fact that I sleep about 2 to 3 hours a night. I average about 3 to 4 hours because I'm juggling, again, 3 jobs, right? But with personalities, regardless of age, because our youngest doodler is 9 years old and our oldest is over 50, especially, not to generalize, but I am going to, in the 20s, when you're in that stage where you just finished school and moving forward, there's BGR relationship issues that they come to me about and some other stuff. But some of the issues are very real, like financial issues. Some of them have problems like getting to the place because they don't have enough money or going for gigs, and we'll help them out accordingly. What's really amazing, because it's a community, so everybody's more than happy to share their share of the bounty to help those that are in need.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine. My 2 daughters are 6 and 8, and they go to local schools, and there's very little time to draw.
My condolences.
Homework. So are you planning to do anything specific for kids? That's one thing. And the second thing is the youngest one, the 6-year-old, she was actually too shy to come today.
Oh.
So instead she sent you a drawing.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Thanks. Oh, it's all wrapped up. So sweet. So, okay, the first question first, and what plans do we have for kids? So again, what we do is typically work with organizations that want to do outreach programs for children, and we'll do that. Up front, I can tell you that in the month of May onwards, I'll have a few workshops that I'll be conducting. I've done some of these workshops, and I know some of you have attended my workshops. So they're held at the public libraries, and another one will be held at the Singapore Art Museum 8Q as well. So do look out for those. And then I would love to connect with kids a little bit more, and which would be great that if you could bring your kids over to some of our shows and draw together. Because now I have a junior doodler who's like 9, and she can, when it's peer-to-peer, it's a lot more connected. Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what she should be doing. So bring them for the gigs that we're doing, especially for the open gigs. Unfortunately, some of the gigs are more like closed gigs, so not anybody can join. But we have a few that's open that you can come up and join us. So do come down to our Facebook group page, not the main page, make a request. And it's kind of funny because everybody who makes a request will send me a private message and send me a link to their portfolio or their Behance page. And I'm like, no, dude, you don't have to send me all that. Just make a request and I'll bring you in. So it's as simple as that, just coming and joining us.
Thank you for sharing, Mark. I'd like to know where are the location that we can visit?
To see the artwork. Okay, so that's a good question because not all of the artworks resides with us. Some of them are in private spaces and they're already owned by the clients. But right now, the best is to go down to Imaginarium Singapore Art Museum because that's the biggest square area of artwork. We took one weekend to do those 4 floors. And then the other one will be at 80 Circuit Road, the MacPherson Hawker Centre one. Coming up, we're taking over Esplanade in June. So we're taking over the main auditorium for Esplanade. That's about 20 square meters. Because of my day job in PUB, I contribute back to my organization. So this weekend, we are drawing at Sports Hub because we have a big event coming up next weekend where we're drawing. I have to apologize that this is a government thing. We are drawing the biggest SG50 banner ever. So we'll be doodling on that banner. And then, of course, if you come down and take a look, technically it should be only the BOD guys that draws, but you come down and I'll pass you a marker and just draw along with us. So try to come down to the Sports Hub. We'll be there from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. Try to come a little bit earlier. At the OCBC Square. It's near the Visitor Center, and you can see us in action and hopefully join us as well. Tomorrow and the day after. Today I have to go to work. 80 Circuit Road. This is at MacPherson area. You can go to our Facebook page and see all the gigs there. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Michael.
Hi, Michael.
My question to you is, what do you say to adults who say, I can't draw?
I
Get them around that mindset, because that happens so often. And I know as a kid, everybody draws.
I tell you what happens with adults, okay? So we come up to them, do you like to draw? And I'm like, what is that? Like the marker is the most poisonous thing in the world at that point in time. And then after that, when you convince them to hold the marker, they'll do this, and they'll look at it, and they'll turn around, they ask their friends, what can I draw? Or what should I draw? So the first thing I ask them to do is like, you've already overcome the first step in that you're holding the marker. So if you can hold the marker, you can draw. And then I'll tell them, usually we ask them what's their favorite animal, and that's easier, but they realize that animal is kind of difficult to draw. Then I'll ask them what's their favorite food, and suddenly they can draw. So we'll try to find ways and means to connect. And I think like for adults, it tends to be a little bit more interesting to get them to come out. You're absolutely right, Michael. Kids, I love them. When they come in, you just give... It's just a matter of like, oh, okay, that's the canvas ends there, and that one is the wall. We can't technically draw on the wall, stuff like that. So we just have to help along with the kids. But I think with the adults, it's a matter of most of them, like what I mentioned earlier, they attach a lot of meanings to their drawing. For some reason, they think that when you look at a wall like that, your artwork is going to stand out among everything else. And everybody's like, the wall is amazing, except for that little dot stick figure that somebody drew. So we just have to get them to stop their inhibitions. Everything is always about your own way of thinking or perception.
Awesome. Anyone has a burning question? One last question if you have on the floor. I forgot to mention there's actually a prize for the person. Mas will actually select one person who asks the best question, and we're giving away a 1-year Skillshare scholarship.
Gifts help. Giving gifts help.
My name is Bart.
Hi, Bart.
I just have a question.
Hold on, I'm just going to interrupt you. Bart is an amazing sculptor. He sculpts items with cardboard boxes, in case you haven't seen them.
Thanks, but it's not about me. but
It's about us.
over the year, probably you get a lot of requests like looking for collaboration or works, and then how do you actually select them? Probably it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it is very overwhelming, and I try not to select. I don't like that work. So I try to include everything in like some of my colleagues or artists will tell you that it's a bit crazy, and I have to sometimes apologize to people that come by and say that the reply can be quite late in coming, because at any one point in time, aside from lining up the work itself over the weekend, I have about 5 to 10 requests that comes in every week. So we'll try to work it out. We have 200 artists, so I'm sure there's more than enough for everyone. The biggest problem with running this show is the running of the show. People just like to show up and draw. So I need to tell them or encourage them that if you don't help me with the running of the show, it's going to be difficult for us to get new gigs. And most of them understand. None of us gets up before 8 o'clock. Trust me, I asked for... The reason why gigs always start at 10 o'clock is that we can't get up early in the morning. So when I was surprised at the turnout today, that the 6 of them actually turned up earlier in this morning. So we try to make sure that we accede to every request. But the more exciting your request, and especially if it involves community participation, the more interested we are.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to take the opportunity to invite the band of Doodlers, or AKA White Space Bandits.
Yes.
Right? So
Can you guys all come up?
Yeah, please come up to the stage, and you can continue the drawing later.
Yeah, you come over here, up on stage.
Come on, let's get playing around and draw. And we also have possibly our youngest White Space Bandit, this young lady over here. Would you like to come up? Okay. Awesome.
What's her name?
Wonderful.
What's her name? Sophia.
Sophia.
Okay, welcome to the club. Okay, so actually, these are the guys, along with the 50 to 200 others that join us for gigs, and this whole band of Doodlers wouldn't have been possible without them and their enthusiasm. Most of the ones here have been with us since day one, and I think what's amazing is that we've become close friends and forged a long relationship with each other, which is amazing. So just going to introduce you. This is Andre, Michelle, or Mitch, Melissa, Bisen, Anastasia, Mui Ping, and Sophia, our latest member. And I would actually like to make special mention to Brian, because Brian is the one guy that helped me from the beginning in terms of running the stuff. So to answer you, but if not for him, we would be doing only half the gigs that we're doing right now. And how I got to know him, he attended one of my workshops, and then he's like, hey, this is quite interesting, can I join some more? Yeah, okay, you can join. Why don't you be the admin as well? So that's what happened. Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
All right, so after this, it wouldn't be a true BOD session without you guys drawing. So with the networking and all that, it'll be great if you can network over there. And at least before you go out, draw on the artwork. Do not be afraid to deface the characters that we have there. There's a reason that spaces in between the faces is for you to deface it. Get it? I said deface. Thank you, I'll be all week.
Yeah, let's give them a round of
Thank you.
applause, please. So, before we go, Mars is going to select one person who asked like the most interesting question or the best question in his opinion, and we're going to give the person a 1-year Skillshare scholarship provided by Skillshare.com.
Is there any age limit?
Come again.
Is there any age limit?
There is no age limit.
So I'll give it to, what's her name again? Coco. I'll give it to Coco, although she's not here.
Awesome.
But-
Yeah.